What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here. So happy to be back talking football with you guys. More so happy to just not be trapped in the car for probably 20-25 hours with the wife and kids, screaming baby, 1-year-old, as we travel from Vegas to all over California to visit family and vacation. But football, back to football. Finally, there's a lot that I've been missing out on in terms of trade deadline updates and such. But this is one of the stories that caught my particular eye, because one of the questions for me that's out there isn't necessarily just around, will Aaron Glenn be able to get a few more wins, I guess, than expected, which will probably be on par with what the initial projections were, about 6 wins. I think we were 5.5 win team initially. The more optimistic people were thinking maybe 8, maybe 9 wins, something like that. Can we get somewhere between 4 and 6, right? And then once you get past that and you imagine that makes him officially safe going into year 2, you feel a little bit better about this regime and their ability to go out and pick a top quarterback, etc., etc. Can Aaron Glenn succeed for the long term? And one of the direct issues or influences that can cause some turmoil for him would be the owner, Woody Johnson. Once again in headlines, and not for anything tied to the team's success, not anything tied to anything he's done as a humanitarian, not tied to really anything positive that's going on in the football world for him. And is coming from a former New York Jets quarterback in Jordan Travis. We picked him up in the 5th round of the 2024 draft under the Saleh regime. And it's not like this is something that's necessarily coming out of the blue, right? His comments is coming on the heels of Woody Johnson blasting Justin Fields, and to a degree, rightfully so. But again, to me, it's more so about how he said it rather than what he was saying, because it's just factual, right? Even as Aaron Glenn tried to massage things and soothe it out, he wasn't playing good football. We got one decent week, which was versus the Steelers, and then a whole lot of trash after that prior to that Bengals game. So, again, not unwarranted, but coming from the owner and the manner in which it was said and stuff didn't put him in a good light. You also have Woody Johnson coming on the heels of giving comments to Diana Rossini, stating that one of the biggest benefits, I guess, in his eyes about his ownership qualities is that he feels he can connect to players, and he's known as a guy that they can come to and have conversations with and really give feedback or just sit and talk to, right? Open door policy, if you will. And a lot of this kind of refutes that. Also, there were all the reports that Diana Rossini dropped last year talking about just how bad things have gotten under Robert Saleh and kind of how he was blasting other players and such. So there's consistency in the reports in what we're hearing from players and what we're hearing being reported as things continue to come out. And it gives the view, in my opinion, that these aren't just one-off events, right? It's not like he's been the owner for 20 plus years and, every decade, right? Every decade, something slips out and it just happens to be bad, and it's, kind of that human error thing. But because of the level he's at, it's, taken to another level. This seems to be kind of on par, I would imagine, with what a lot of these players tend to get, especially since we haven't had a winning organization for so long, which can, bleed into more of these toxic type issues. So what was said? One of the things we have to keep in context here is Jordan Travis's history with the Jets already. Again, former draft pick. But his agent also had came out and mentioned that the New York Jets had rushed his rehab, which ultimately led to a setback. And who knows if prior to rushing the rehab or anything, there was a legitimate chance for him to come back. But it gives the view that because we rushed the rehab, because he had the setback, that fully led to him just not being able to see the field whatsoever, right? 0 practices, Zero game time, zero snaps ever for a quarterback that many people thought was like a top 50, top 75 type pick. And an obvious steal for the New York Jets, assuming he would be able to bounce back at some point. Now, he has his own podcast since he was medically retired, Travis Takes Two, and this is where he led these comments. So let's get into it. I got to tell you that, that guy, no disrespect, but there were things said to me, not obviously to that point because I never got on the field to play, but about my leg. Like just slick comments. I don't know if he was trying to be slick about it. You know how some older people, they just say whatever comes to their mind, and it kind of made me feel a certain type of way. You ever going to get healthy? And I'm just like, damn, not like how you feeling. Never that. It was always comments like that. It kind of upset me, but kind of rolled over my head. And to me, I'm putting myself in Jordan Travis's shoes, right? You picked me in the 5th round. I'm extremely gracious about the opportunity to potentially play for this team as one that took a chance, knowing the type of injury that I had, knowing the medicals that would have come out through the combine, and as they continued to get, reports on it, and then ultimately once you drafted me and you got your guys to look at me, right? You made it, you continued to give me a chance. It's not like you wrote me off the moment you got in there seeing, oh, maybe things are a little bit worse than possible than we expected, or, hey, they're a little bit better, but we're erring on the side of caution, whatever that looked like, right? So I'm walking in, I'm extremely gracious. I am putting belt to behind when it comes to this rehab process and doing everything that I can in tandem with my own medical grouping, and of course what the New York Jets are providing and assisting with, and we're trying to get this thing on track, right? Now, every single time, and by the way, let's not forget, when you talk about the list of players that we've had, high profile players, significant injuries, right? Jermaine Johnson, you look at Elijah Vera Tucker, you look at what Aaron Rodgers went through, and you hear some of their commentary about the really dark times, and really the kind of dark spirit or cloud that sits over them as they get through a certain point in this process where it feels like there's either no positive movement or that they've been in a stagnant or static state for quite some time. And you would imagine with the type of injury that Jordan had, probably the worst thing we've seen since maybe Alex Smith or Teddy Bridgewater, this guy is going through it even more so than these guys, right? And you're extremely young. You're coming in, I think he was 24 when we drafted him, right? So a bit older as a player, but still young. And you're talking about potentially not being able to play the sport that you love anymore. Just to hear that the owner comes by and he isn't even remotely interested in, hey, how are you doing? How's the rehab going? How can I help? Do you just want to talk through some things? Can I help connect you with anybody to maybe smooth things out, give you a different ear to talk to if I'm not that person? It's none of that. It's, you ever going to get healthy? What's up with that leg, dude? Let's get this thing going, right? Let's get you playing on one leg if possible. That will probably send me over the wall, right? So I think for one, Jordan Travis handled that situation pretty perfect, and I think right in line with how he's connecting with Justin Fields and how he's handling a lot of that. But again, it's just a symptom here to go back to the original kind of points that triggered this conversation for me. Imagine Aaron Glenn can ride this thing out and he does turn us back into an upper tier franchise, right? Let's say this year we can get 3 or 4 wins. Let's say going into year 2, we start talking about 7 to 9 wins. Let's talk about year 3, we're hitting double digits and plus, right? At that point, he's having contract extension talks. We're consistently a double digit win team. Best case scenario, right? And I'm talking like a 5 to 7 year plan here. For one, this does a couple of things, right? For one, it puts Aaron Glenn in the situation where now he has to either talk for the owner and try to say what he imagines he's actually meaning, as he did with Justin Fields, or you have a direct opposition of views in which the owner's saying one thing and Aaron Glenn is saying, hey, actually don't see it like that at all. Maybe I need to go have a talk with the owner, or, you know, he defaults to, hey, it's his opinion. I don't agree with it, but it is what it is. He verbalized it, right? You have Aaron Glenn doing everything he can to insulate this building from, 1, leaks getting out, and 2, us making headlines for anything that doesn't have to do with the play of the team for 60 minutes, right? Maybe additional if there's overtime games. And so you have this issue where it's the guy at the top cutting all of the checks that's causing you the most drama. That could either wear and wane on a person, or it could end up forcing somebody to want to leave early. It could cause resentment, even from the owner's side of things, like, hey, I'll say whatever I please, and I need you to be backing me up, right? And it could put them in a bad situation. Two, when I think about guys, Jason Voorhees is what was coming to mind, but that's not the name. But there was like a guard, I remember, Voorhees, that had a pretty bad injury, picked up by the Ravens in like the 5th or 6th round, something like that, right? There's a section or a sect of players now that when it comes to injuries, you have to kind of do a double or triple take on, because one, you have to judge the longevity and severity of the issue, but two, now you have to also have this internal monologue of, hey, what's the timeline that we're looking like for this guy to be able to try to contribute or at least practice, so to where we don't have the owner walking up to him and saying, hey, why are we paying you all this money and you're not doing anything? You're just rehabbing. You don't seem to be getting any better, right? Now there's a situation where you can't bet on a guy's upside because he's young and he can get back healthy, and he looked like a top player at his position, but guys are a little bit shaky, right? Maybe you're in a good place where you built up depth at that position, or you built up the starters and you want to try to have that depth behind it, and this is a guy that you feel like could be a pipeline player, right? You don't really have that option anymore now, because at any point in time, the owner can end up causing issues, right? Or maybe there could even be some kind of quiet mandate that's put out there that we don't accept injured players, right? At least until we start winning or something along those lines. And look, there's a lot of players getting injured for all of the health and safety protocols being put in place, not only at the college, but the NFL level. You think about arena football, the XFL, CFL, all that kind of stuff, where you might grab other players from. Injuries happen. It happens to the best. It happens to the worst. And so you could end up excluding an entire population of players, let alone the free agency impact, where if this is a guy that's maybe he's been injury prone, right? But to the degree that he plays every year, but maybe it's only like 10 or 11 games and he's missing the other 5 to 6. But it's worth having him on the field for those 11 games. And if you can get more, perfect. Now maybe those guys second guess coming, right? Because it's, I heard what happened with Justin Fields. I heard how Jordan Travis was treated. And I'm at a less important position to not get criticized, or to have some of those criticisms deflected, or to have him second guess it, right? So the whole situation just kind of blows my mind and intrigues me at the same time for whatever reason, because I feel like Woody Johnson is out in the public for more of this stuff, and given the market and all that stuff, even more than many of the other owners. Like, I remember seeing Robert Kraft in the news a couple of times. I remember seeing like the Dolphins owner a few times for maybe some wild comments here or there, right? Or maybe some kind of malpractice, like the Ravens and their Lamar Jackson injury designation stuff. But even that isn't necessarily always ownership, right? That's front office, that's coaching staff stuff. Woody Johnson just seems to be in the spotlight more often than anybody else I could possibly think of, even for the other terribly owned franchises. The Jaguars, and if I remember correctly, they either are being forced to sell, or they're currently in the process of doing that, or was sold already. I don't know another organization necessarily that's dealing with this as often as we seem to hear about it, which may be every offseason, maybe every other offseason, in addition to at least once or twice during the regular season. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are ultimately. I figured this was a fun one for me to jump back in and tackle as I get into some of this other stuff. But stay tuned. I'm going to drop a live at some point this week, so I can just link with you guys and talk a little bit more ad nauseum about some of the stuff. I'll probably do it on trade deadline day, maybe the day before, and catch up on the latest news. But again, let me know what you guys' thoughts are about this situation, and I'll catch you guys again. Peace.